joy in recovery, having fun in recovery, and when people first get into any program, regardless of what it is, when we stop any addiction, we have a lot of time on our hands, because we've spent so much time on the addiction. And so a lot of people early in sobriety will get bored and they'll think, is this all there is? What do I do now? And boredom is the ultimate of self-centeredness. When we're saying we're bored, we're saying, I can't stand to be with myself. Think about that. When we're bored, we're saying, I can't stand to be by myself. So, I think it's really important to talk about having fun in recovery. Yes, recovery is very serious. I'm not going to, dilute that or take away from the seriousness of recovery, but I will tell you, if you can't have a little fun in recovery, who would want to be in recovery? So I wanted to talk a little bit about, and when I started thinking about this, I remembered a lot of things about how I haven't always been joyful. I have not always known how to have fun. I have not always known how to laugh. I was the serious one in the family. Well, because I had to do everything. That's the Al-Anon salute, by the way. Bless my heart, I had to do it all. And I did as a kid. I can laugh about it, but I was the one that stayed home and took care of a drunk mom, and I loved her to the day she died. She was like my child. And my only regret is I couldn't get her sober. So, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about Rule 62. Don't take yourself so damn serious. We sometimes get into recovery and then we just get so serious about everything. I'll tell you, we got to be serious about working a good program, but we do have to learn how to lighten up a little bit. And like I was saying, I did not realize until I started thinking about this and working on it, how, my mother was like a stand-up comedian, and all her brothers and sisters were. If my mother was here, she would be cracking jokes. Y'all would not pay one bit of attention to me. You'd be listening to Neva because she was funny. She was beautiful. She was cute, precious, and darling, and she could reel people in with her humor. And I resented that. Because I was the one, after everybody would leave, her drinking buddies, and the people that she would tell jokes and have fun with, when they would all leave, I'd be there cleaning up the mess, cleaning her up, putting her to bed. And so, I didn't see anything fun about that. And I had a hard time learning how to have fun in recovery. And it's always been, and I will say always, we encourage people not to say always, but I'm going to say always. In my recovery, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. All along in my recovery, when I have needed something, someone in recovery has shown up to teach me whatever I needed to learn at the time. So I was in Al-Anon, had been in Al-Anon since 1968. My husband was still drinking. I had a house full of kids. I ran it like a staff sergeant. I was never very happy. But I started to this noon meeting, women's meeting. It was made up of Al-Anon women and AA women. And there was this woman in there, and she was gorgeous. She had this long gray hair. She had on a white coat with a stethoscope around her, and I just knew she was a doctor. But she was a PA, and she was delightful. And I went and I'd watch her and went and I'd watch her. And she was so full of grace, but also she was so funny. And she would try to make friends with me, but I was so scared of people, and I'd think if she only knew who I, how I was, she wouldn't want to bother with me. And it's my beloved Pat, who died two months ago of Alzheimer's. She didn't know anyone, but anyway, she was a traveling, she wasn't a PA, that was before they even had PAs. She was a RA, she was a traveling nurse, and it was before cell phones. And she, for some reason or other, I always told her she took me on as a case, but she took a liking to me, is what I'm going to say. And I was not receptive. I was scared to let my guard down. One day, and I just remembered this, one day she knocked on my door. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I mean, it scared me. I didn't know what she wanted with me. But she walked in my door, and like Misty says about our story, Pat walked into my heart, and she became a member of our family. My children didn't have active grandparents. Pat became the grandmother. She went to everything, every baptism, every birth, every dance recital, you name it, she showed up. And that's what we do in the program. We show up for each other. That looks like Kathy. That looks like my little grand dog. Oh my, that looks just like Scout. How cute. Maybe they're brothers.
That's Winston. I just adopted him.
Oh, he looks just like my little grand dog. So sweet. All right, so what happened is Pat and I, and it took a long time. It took a long time for her to win me over because I didn't trust people. My husband was still drinking, so I got up in my little pea brain, and she had some good sobriety, and so I thought, good, she can help me sober him up. So that's what started our friendship. She didn't know it, but I knew she could help sober him up. But anyway, they became close friends before he ever sobered up. But what Pat gave me was humor. She taught me how to laugh, and it was not easy. It was not easy because I had never known, I couldn't let down my guard and laugh and have fun, and resented those that could. And I really resented those that could just laugh and have fun. And so she started teaching me how to have fun. And the main thing is to learn to laugh at ourselves. And so I'll give you one little example. One day I was so depressed, and I had a house full of kids, a drunk husband, blah, blah, blah. And Pat called me one day, and she said, "I want you to get a babysitter." And I said, "Why?" "Just get a babysitter." And so she came and got me, and the West Texas Fair was going on. Later, I became the chairman of the women's, anyway, I started helping all those run the West Texas Fair, but at that time, she said, "We're going to the fair." So we got to the fair. Now, Pat was single, and she was a good-looking woman. She was single, and we were walking along the fairgrounds there, and there was a man playing music. So we stopped and was watching him play music. And then he started waving. Well, Pat, being single, thought he was flirting with her, and she'd wave back. And he'd wave, and she'd wave back, and he'd wave, and she'd wave, wave, wave. But the rest of us in the audience could tell what he was waving at. He was waving at the light and sound people behind us. So we all got to laughing, and Pat took it real well. But she was the center of that joke, because she was just waving, flirting with that guy. And so she taught me that it was okay to, I was always laughed at because of my weight, and she took that really well, and we laughed about it for years, about how she thought that he was really waving at her, but it gave us something, a reference to look back at and laugh about. And so Pat really taught me about how to laugh. And then my friend Kathy, very sophisticated woman. She's the one that we sponsored each other for 20 years. Every morning we talked at 5 a.m. regardless of where we were. And she died the year before my husband did. Okay, now Kathy was the most sophisticated woman. She was from Atlanta. If you know Atlanta women, they dress more than Dallas women do, and that's a lot, isn't it? So she was cute, precious, and darling, and she lived in the North Georgia mountains, and she wanted to take us up to North Carolina, which was not far, to the Biltmore Mansion. I don't know if any of you've been, but if you haven't, I would encourage you to go. Well, Kathy had been there many, many, many times, and she didn't want to pay. I think the tickets were like $75. Now, she had the money, but she didn't want to go and tour the Biltmore again. She said, I'll tell you, this is what we need to do. Why don't we go in? Y'all pay for the parking, get into the parking lot, park the car, but let's stop on the way out there and let me get in the trunk of the car. I'll get in the trunk of the car, y'all park the car, and then you let me out and y'all go to the, tour the mansion, and I'll just walk. She was a runner, and she said, I'll just walk the grounds, then I won't have to pay that money. So about the time we were getting her out, of course, this, Barney Fife guy came by, he was on some kind of vehicle, and he caught her getting out of the trunk. And we got to laughing, and we got to laughing and got him to laughing. And so he let her walk the grounds without paying. But that was something, every time we'd think of the Biltmore, we'd think of, now you have to really see this picture. I mean, she was a Neiman Marcus type of gal, dressed to the hills, but hid in the trunk of the car. So, and then there was my friend Barbara. One of the things that I had a problem with is triangulation. I did not know what triangulation was. Y'all know what triangulation is? So it would be my mother died, my mother and I, just me and my mother, I took care of her, and we were just lived in each other's skins. And then when my sister would come home, it would form a triangle. I would be the young one, she would be married, they'd send me outside or whatever, and they would talk and all, and it formed that triangle. And I never felt a part of that triangle. I wanted to just be me and my mother. So I grew up thinking I wasn't worthy of having a relationship just for myself. So every friendship that I would have, I'd bring in a third party. I would, have a dear friend, and then I would introduce them to someone else, and then they would form a friendship. And then guess what? I'd get jealous and get mad at both of them. Now that's sickness. That is codependency at the extreme. And I did that for many years. And Barbara was the one who taught me what I was doing. Now, my friend Barbara was a therapist, and she treated my whole family. We trained together, Barbara and I did, and we worked together professionally, but she also worked with all my kids. And so I kept trying to triangulate her with some of my friends so I could get mad at both of them and be left out. We recreate our history until we really look at our history. we keep recreating it. And so I would kept recreating that triangle so I could feel left out, so I could feel sorry for myself, so I could be angry at them. Now, I know that sounds sick, but ask yourselves, how many of you have done that? You know, when you form that triangle. And I was good at it. I was a master at it. And then what would happen is they both might be mad at me. And then I would feel like my mission was completed because I never felt like I wanted to be special. I want to be the only one for someone. When you're wanting to be special to someone, that's codependency at the max, at the max. So Barbara, through her humor, taught me about triangulation, and she would get everybody she knew in our relationship so I could practice. So Barbara taught me a lot, and she taught me a lot about humor. Although she lived in Florida, she was from North Carolina and had that North Carolina accent. She'd say, "Oh, darling, darling." Anyway, we had a lot of fun, and we traveled together a lot. And then we traveled, Barbara and Pia Melody and I traveled a lot together. And come to find out, Pia Melody and I had the same thing, that triangulation. And so that brought up a lot of humor. We both worked through it. We would talk about how, we both wanted Barbara and we'd want to pull her in too, but we had worked through the triangulation. And that came up in one of Pia's books later on. So the thing about it is, find something. I want to talk about humor. Don't take yourself so serious. And humor and laughter is essential. It changes the whole body chemistry. A good giggle, a good laugh does. We just came off of that cruise, and there was not one negative thing about that cruise. Nothing. I mean, perfection. And in the past, I would have picked it to pieces. I would have found this or that. There wasn't anything. I mean, it was a wonderful time, and there was a lot of laughter shared, and there was just fun, and we did share recovery. So laughter is very important. And y'all know how I met Misty is after Kathy died and my husband died. It was the lowest point in my entire life. I had never been that low after my husband and my beloved husband and beloved Kathy died. And I was at my lowest point. I had friends, lots of friends, but I'm talking about that heart connection, that running buddies. Kathy and I traveled the world together. She came here. She had no family. We were her family. My daughters missed her, and they still miss her every day. She was part of our family. So I was low. And I got to praying for a new best friend. I just started praying because I know God hears our prayers. I don't care what. Is that my friend Tammy? Woo! From Tennessee. Good morning, Tammy. Good morning. So I started praying for a new best friend. And I was looking out my kitchen window one morning, and I saw this woman pushing a baby buggy, and she had a little toddler about 2. That toddler would run up in my driveway. And she had this top knot on the back of her head, and she would jog, and that top knot would bounce up and down, and she would push those babies. And I watched her every time she went by. I watched her for about a week. I stalked her, in fact. I started stalking her. And I watched her with her children and how gentle she was with her children. And I live in a very small town, but I had no idea where she lived. So one day I got out after she passed and turned the corner. I went out to the corner and looked down the street and realized she lived on the corner 1 block from me. So I got my little red golf cart and I drove down to her house. Now I had never met this woman, but I knew she was that was the one. I just knew it. And I knocked on her door and I said, and this is so unlike me, for those of you who know me, this is not me. This was God in me. And so I knocked on the door. She came to the door and I said, "Hi, I'm your neighbor. I'm Tennie McCarty, and I am your new best friend." And what Misty says is what?
You knocked on my door.
Come over here and tell her. So, you know, it was a two-way deal.
I just said she knocked on my door and walked into my heart. And it really happened that way.
It really happened, and come to find out, that was the low point in Misty's life. God put us together, and I like the way Misty talks about that God knitted our souls together. And, you know, I'm almost twice her age, but age doesn't matter. We have so much fun, and we giggle and we laugh. And I'll tell you, my friend right there, Tammy, if you want a giggle session, a laugh session, she lives in Tennessee. She's a laugher. A laugher. She knows how to have fun. Several of you on here do. So it's very important to find someone, I call them a running buddy, to have fun with. You know, Pat, going back to my beloved Pat, she's the one who taught me that it was okay to have fun and to lighten up a little bit. I'll tell you this one thing, and then I'm going to get past Pat. But anyway, I haven't been able to talk about her because she died 2 months ago, but she died for me several years ago when she got Alzheimer's. But anyway, my husband sobered up, and his sponsor was in Norman, Oklahoma. So once a month we went to Norman, Oklahoma, and he'd have all of his sponsorees there. And then Otto would also come to Abilene, and Otto taught us a lot. But anyway, they had a big Saturday night speaker meeting, and Pat was going to be the speaker. She spoke everywhere. She spoke at the international conference, and she was well known everywhere, and she was my friend. So Arl was driving us. I was in the front seat, and we were taking a fresh drunk, a woman that had 3 or 4 days of sobriety. That was before detox. We didn't know, about taking her to a detox center. This had been years ago, but we had detoxed her, and so we were taking this fresh recovering alcoholic with us. It's back in the CB days, those CB radios. Y'all ever talk on them? Or they see, and that it's, where everybody had one, and you talk on them. Well, Pat got to talking on it, and Pat would, and I'm ashamed of this, but anyway, I'm going to tell it anyway. Pat had this comedy routine where she talked tongue-tied, and she had got on there and got to talking to these truckers tongue-tied, and we got to laugh at it and having fun. So we got to this AA meeting that night. It was a huge meeting, and we were sitting on the second or the first row because we were sitting with the speaker. No, it was on the second row. And we had this fresh alcoholic woman, just 3 or 4 days of recovery. And they had this woman to get up to read how it works. Well, when she started reading how it works, she was tongue-tied. And she could hardly read, and it wasn't funny, but it was funny to us because we'd been doing that in the car. So my friend Carmen, the one that was got to laughing, and she could not stop laughing. And then I got to laughing, and then Pat got mad at both of us. Finally, Carmen just got down up under the seat in front of us, and she just laughed through the meeting. But anyway, it is, laughter is fun. Carmen also became my very first business partner years down the line. And I remember the day we went and got the note to open, borrowed money from the bank to open Shades. 2 women. How we talked them into doing that, I don't know, but they loaned us money to open Shades. And then she was this little cute, short, cutest thing. And so we started walking out of the bank, and every time she'd get tickled or to get to laugh at, she'd have to wet herself. So she wet herself in that bank and left a trail. And we got out in the foyer, and we could not stop laughing. And I thought, those people in there that just loaned us this money are going to demand it back when they see these two idiots out here laughing. So, find things to laugh about, and it doesn't take much. And that's what I do have with Misty. We have so much fun and laugh. Number two is celebrate milestones, in the program, particularly, in AA, in most parts of the country, people celebrate milestones in recovery with a cake. In OA, we get the candle, but celebrate. If you got 30 days, celebrate. And don't celebrate by using any substance. Celebrate your recovery. Celebrate those milestones. It's very, very important to do that. Also, celebrate with your family, birthdays, retirements. My kids just gave me this huge, last year when I turned 80, they'd given me this huge surprise birthday party when I was 70, and I said, okay, we don't want to repeat of that. Do not do anything that big. Let's just kind of have a quiet celebration. Well, they did there's probably 200 people there. When I opened the door, oh my gosh, and it was wonderful. People were there from all over the United States, and so I was very glad my children didn't listen to me. But we know how to celebrate because we went years without celebrating. We went years, if we did celebrate, there wasn't a lot of laughter because of the addictions going on in our home. I want to tell you something that my children, my daughter and Christy and Cam came up with for this year, and we're all excited about it. We're doing something different this year about gift giving. We all have everything that we need. I need to declutter my house. We got too much stuff. Any of y'all have too much stuff? And we don't need anything. So Cam and Christy's come up with the idea that we're going to have, instead of giving gifts, we're going to give experiences. And each one's going to come up with an experience. I've already got mine. I had bought tickets to take them to a concert next week. Aaron Watson, I don't know if y'all know the country western singer. He's from Buffalo Gap, but he's famous. And anyway, we're going to his family concert. Then they're taking us Sunday to the light show, which is a big deal here in Abilene. So each one of us are going to come up with an experience. And I know we will get competitive about coming up with the experiences. And we're going to have some wonderful experiences because each one will want to try to outdo the other. So what I envision is we'll be doing this spontaneously throughout the year. And thanks, Cam, for the idea. And because we know how to have fun together. And then that way we won't have to go shopping or do any of that. Yeah, it'll take some money, but that's what we spend on gifts, we're going to spend on our experiences. So stay tuned to hear about our experiences through the year. All right, so another thing is remember mindfulness. You have to actually get your mind set on being joyful or having fun. Mindfulness is focusing on the moment. And this is what, now is the moment of power. If any of us got to thinking about things in the past, we'd get gloom and doom. Or if we think about the future, we think, oh my God, what's going to happen? Or, we can go either way. And so it's important to stay in the now, in this moment, and be aware of what's happening around you, that mindfulness. And you can find a lot, not only to have fun with, but also be grateful for, to stay to mindfulness, enjoying the present moment. That's what it is. It's about staying in the present moment. That's the best present you can give anyone, is to be present with them when you're there, is to be present. make eye contact with people when you're there. That's the best gift of the season that you can give each other. And in doing that, it's going to enhance your experience of joy. And then number 4 is building supportive relationships. I've already touched on that. But having positive social connections in recovery, it takes being, it doesn't mean people in recovery never have problems. Yes, we have our share of problems, but I'll tell you, once you get into a 12-step program, you never have to go through another thing alone. Never, ever, unless you choose to. And so building that supportive relationships, and what we say is we don't need a lot of people in our life. Robert Kennedy left us this. He said if we have 3 to 5 people who know everything about us and love us anyway, when we die rich. And to form those kinds of relationships, love is really spelled Time. You can say you love people till hell freezes over. Any of us can, but if we don't have time to spend with those that we love, it doesn't mean much. We can say, I love you on the run, when we're running somewhere else. I'm talking probably a lot about the cruise, but I wanted to mention Beth is on here, and Beth and Bob are our cruise leaders. Bob is a travel agent, and he puts together recovering cruises, and I love watching them together. Bob is the idea person, and he's kind of like me. He has an idea a minute. We can do this, and we can do that, and we can do something else. And then here's Beth, very calmly helps him carry out those ideas. So they are a match made in heaven. But I enjoyed watching them this week, working together and playing together. And as far as I know, if they had a crossword, it was behind closed doors. We didn't see any of that. And there'd be times that, I could see a little eye rolling with Beth, with Bob, but not much. It's like, oh, here he goes again. But they're a delightful couple to cruise with. If you want to go on one of our cruises, these are the folks you need to cruise with, because they can make it happen and they can make it fun, and fun in recovery. All right, so building supportive relationships are very important. And then number 5 is what I end with every time, is self-care. If you don't take care of yourself and enjoy yourself, feed yourself appropriately, get enough rest, exercise, pamper yourself. If you don't do that, you're not going to have anything to give to anyone else, and you're not going to find much to laugh about. It's about learning to take care of yourself. And then what I always say is have that positive mindset. If you do, that's what you're going to draw to you. When we have that positive mindset, we're going to draw the positive. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to have negativity coming toward us, but if you can set healthy boundaries, that negativity will bounce off of you. But have that positive attitude. And one of the things is to invite God into the center of every challenge and every conflict that you have. He knows, God knows what we have need of. And think about the times that he fellowshipped. He fellowshipped a lot. And people would gather around and just want to listen to him or touch the hem of his garment, because he was a gatherer. He gathered people around him. And you can tell when people are givers, because they gather people around. So invite God into every challenge you have. Invite God into every conflict. Look inside of every conflict and see the good. There's good in everything. And remember, with every breakdown, there's a breakthrough. When you have a breakdown, if you can go through the breakdown and get to the breakthrough, there's a lesson inside it. And if you're not having any breakdowns, you're probably not having a lot of breakthroughs and having that joy of, whew, made it through that one, thank God, and listen to, and learn the lesson that you needed to learn. So he knows what we have need of, and he shows us by his action. If you really want to have humor and laughter and fun in your life, invite God into the center of your life and ask him to help you find more things to laugh about and to have fun over. And the best thing that we can do is learn to laugh at ourselves. And so with that, I'm going to close my part of it, and I would like to learn from you, each of you, how do you have fun? I want to tell you, we've got somebody on here that I think she created the word fun. So Loretta, she knew I was going to talk about her. Loretta, tell us about how you manage to work fun and that smile into just about everything I see you do. I mean, you've gone through some hard times, and what I experience you is that you're a people person. You engage people, and you laugh, and you get them to laughing. Tell us about laughter and fun.